The spreading aura caused an immediate uproar within the 6th-level cultivation star, sending massive waves throughout the realm. Countless cultivators were abruptly awoken from their meditation, and almost everyone felt a sudden, deep tremor in their minds and souls. At the moment of shock, Wang Lin took a single step. The ripples beneath his feet echoed as he vanished into the starry sky. Yu Fei's expression darkened as he clenched his fists. When he saw the ripples under Wang Lin's feet, his pupils immediately shrank, and his heart was struck with astonishment. Shrinking earth technique. He recognized this divine ability, but he never imagined that Sumu had already comprehended it. Among the cultivators he knew, only a handful could use the shrinking earth technique, and among those of the same rank, it was as rare as a phoenix feather. How could he not be shocked? Moreover, the information he had on Sumu had never mentioned this ability. Almost instinctively, he released his primordial energy, causing it to collapse outward. But after the collapse, Sumu's figure was nowhere to be seen. Even when he stirred the surrounding primordial forces, there was no trace of the man. Yu Fei's expression grew even colder, and he immediately understood. Sumu had escaped. With a roar, he spun around, locking his murderous intent onto the large-headed youth battling his clone. All his rage and killing intent were directed at the large-headed youth, and with a single step, he charged toward him. Your master escaped. Now it's your turn. Yu Fei was seething with rage, but more than that, it was a feeling of suffocation. Despite being at the mid-glimpse of Nirvana stage, he had been helpless as an early glimpse of Nirvana cultivator escaped right in front of him. He had not felt such frustration in a long time. The large-headed youth, engaged in battle with Yu Fei's clone, felt his scalp tingle and his soul tremble with fear. He cursed Wang Lin inwardly, but his body instinctively retreated, trying to flee. But Yu Fei was already consumed with fury. In the blink of an eye, he closed the distance, and with his overwhelming power at the mid-glimpse of Nirvana stage, he pointed his finger. The 5 crimson swords surrounding him let out a deafening scream as they shot toward the large-headed youth. Annihilate him! Yu Fei bellowed, and the 5 crimson swords surged forward, resembling the combined attack of 6 early glimpses of Nirvana cultivators. With the large-headed youth's cultivation, how could he resist? Despair filled his eyes, and a surge of madness erupted in his heart. He was about to self-destruct his essence spirit, determined to take down one of Yu Fei's clones with him. At that critical moment, a cold voice rang out from behind him. This is the miracle of Wang Lin. As the cold voice echoed, the large-headed youth felt his body sway, as though someone had grabbed him and thrown him backward, immediately escaping from the dangerous situation. Wang Lin stepped out of the void, his expression cold as he faced the 5 crimson swords. He threw a punch, his aura far surpassing that of Pagoda Mountain. With a thunderous roar, it was as though the very starry sky would shatter under the force of his blow. A series of sonic booms followed, and in front of Wang Lin, the starry sky actually cracked open, countless fissures spreading as chilling winds blew out. These winds landed on Wang Lin, but he remained unaffected. The starry sky shattered, and the 5 flying swords were no exception. Wang Lin's fist collided with one of the swords, which immediately trembled and shattered with a deafening crash, transforming into countless fragments that swirled into a clone. This clone spewed blood and showed an expression of disbelief and horror as it attempted to retreat. Wang Lin's expression remained ice-cold, emanating an unyielding chill, like a block of eternal ice. The Yu Fei clone had early glimpse of Nirvana cultivation, and the main body was at mid-glimpse of Nirvana. Combined, it was exceedingly difficult to kill, and even if victory was achieved, there would be a price. However, compared to that, merging with his true body was the best option. With a single step, Wang Lin moved forward, and the remaining 5 flying swords were too slow to catch up. Wang Lin reached the blood-spitting clone and, without hesitation, punched it again. Boom. The very sky seemed to tremble. The clone sprayed another mouthful of blood, and its body erupted with blood mist. It crazily retreated, but after 10 steps, it collapsed with a resounding crash and perished completely. A complete annihilation. Having destroyed one clone, Wang Lin suddenly turned around and charged toward the 5 flying swords that were still hurtling toward him. Everything happened in the blink of an eye, and Wang Lin moved so fast that he appeared as nothing more than a blur. As he moved, he once again unleashed a punch, but this time it landed in the void. Yet even in the void, the punch sent out a cracking sound, tearing open a massive rift in the starry sky as if a dragon was hurtling forward. Ahead, one of the crimson swords flashed and shot straight at Wang Lin. He didn't even glance at it. His right hand reached out into the air, and the sword trembled violently, trying to resist. But in the end, Wang Lin caught it and squeezed it mercilessly. Boom. The second crimson flying sword shattered, transforming into a clone, and was about to flee. However, with a flash of thunder intent from Wang Lin's eyes, countless bolts of lightning suddenly converged with a deafening roar, all striking the clone. With an earth-shattering explosion, the clone disintegrated and perished. At that moment, the other 4 crimson flying swords closed in, and suddenly, they struck Wang Lin. The impact made a sound like metal clashing, and from Wang Lin's body, an unimaginable force of rebound erupted, causing the 4 flying swords to be sent flying several meters, trembling uncontrollably. This scene left the big-head child in the distance dumbfounded. He stared at the familiar yet unfamiliar Wang Lin in shock, gasping in awe, his eyes filled with terror. The flying swords can't harm his physical body. The shock wasn't just felt by Big Head, but also by Yu Fei. His expression changed dramatically for the first time. The earlier events had unfolded too quickly, so quickly that he was caught off guard. In what seemed like the blink of an eye, 2 clones were destroyed. The terror within him had already reached its peak. Sullen, he was about to charge forward, but at that very moment, Wang Lin suddenly turned around and let out a roar. This roar was the roar of the ancient god. The voice of the ancient god, which hadn't reverberated through the starry sky for countless millennia, now echoed through the heavens and earth, like the eternal sound of the universe's creation, truly the sound of the opening of the heavens and earth. Under this roar, even the thunder of heaven and earth bowed in submission. The starry sky trembled, for he was the ancient god, a being who had once swept through the entire starry sky countless millennia ago, spreading across the heavens and earth. The roar of the ancient god carried a profound, ancient aura that filled the world in an instant. All living beings would be forced to submit under the sound of the ancient god, and all powers would disintegrate. This roar was far more violent than thunder itself. In its presence, what was thunder compared to this? With a single roar, it turned into an endless storm, sweeping through the starry sky and creating a violent shockwave. As Yu Fei raised his foot to move, he was immediately struck by the roar of the ancient god. A force that shook his mind exploded, sending him staggering backward as though, if he didn't retreat, he would be torn apart by this power. His face turned pale, and the Wang Lin before him seemed like an enraged ancient beast. The immense aura forced him to retreat, and his primordial energy within his body began to circulate uncontrollably, as if it would collapse and destroy him if he didn't move. In that instant, his ears were filled with a buzzing sound, and everything around him seemed to be separated from the world. He could only hear his own heartbeat, rapidly speeding up, thump thump, thump thump. By the end, his heartbeat sounded almost like one continuous sound, filling him with intense fear. This fear came from his soul, from a deep, instinctive terror of the ancient god. For the first time, Yu Fei felt fear, at first just a faint feeling, but soon, it spread throughout his entire being. Big Head Child's face turned pale as well. Under the roar of the ancient god, his mind trembled, and even though he had immortal essence and had already become an immortal, in this moment, he felt as though he was nothing but an ant. Reggie, too, trembled, and within his soul, it felt as if an overwhelming will was roaring. This will felt as if a true servant was witnessing their master, causing him to kneel in the void and submit to his every command. This sensation was something he had never experienced before in his life. While filled with awe, he did not reject it. Instead, it felt strangely familiar and even comforting. If these people were shaken, then one could only imagine how the 4 flying swords, closest to Wang Lin, reacted. Under this roar, the unimaginable shockwave made the heavens and earth change color, causing the starry sky to tremble, and the 4 flying swords to shatter with a series of explosive sounds. As they shattered, countless fragments flew backward and transformed into 4 clones. Each of these clones possessed the cultivation of the early glimpse of Nirvana stage. However, the moment they materialized, they were immediately struck by the roar of the ancient god. It was as though a destructive wind blew through, and the 4 clones' bodies instantly collapsed and vanished, all perishing. With a single step, Wang Lin caused ripples beneath his feet and disappeared. When he reappeared, he was beside Pagoda Mountain. In front of Pagoda Mountain, Yu Fei's last clone had been shaken into retreating swiftly, but how could he compare in speed to Wang Lin? The moment Wang Lin appeared, his right hand formed 2 fingers like a sword and pointed. Endless thunder roared from all directions, and on his fingers, the symbol of yin and yang appeared. With a single strike, the last clone exploded into pieces. Having destroyed 7 clones in a row, Wang Lin completed all this in just a few breaths. Yet, to others, the shock was eternal. Wang Lin's expression remained indifferent as he glanced at the pale-faced Yu Fei in the distance, coldly saying, "This is the miracle I offer you. Are you satisfied?" This left him shaken to his core. What truly nearly shattered his soul, however, was the roar from earlier. It had directly killed all 4 of his avatars in one strike. Even he could sense an overwhelming fear, one that he could not resist. At this moment, he had lost all courage to continue fighting. His body swayed, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. In the blink of an eye, he merged into the blood, swiftly fleeing into the distance. Just as he made his escape, the massive stone he had been standing on shattered with a loud rumble. The surrounding murderous aura spread, causing a large-scale collapse that rapidly expanded, attempting to hinder Yu Fei's pursuit. Wang Lin's expression was cold as he formed a hand seal with his right hand. He pointed at the sky and earth, and immediately, a fierce wind howled, blowing forward with unstoppable force, dispersing the collapse. With a single step, Wang Lin charged forward. Yu Fei's speed was astonishing. Blood escape was a life-saving technique that sacrificed his cultivation. In his panic, he no longer cared about the consequences and fled as fast as possible. But just as he had escaped tens of thousands of miles away, a ripple flickered in the endless void ahead. Wang Lin stepped out and threw a punch directly at him. The punch landed in the void, creating a violent shockwave that caused the surrounding primal energy to whirl madly. Yu Fei's body trembled as he coughed up blood, the bloodlight around his body shattered, and he was forced out by the sheer force. In a moment of madness, Yu Fei quickly formed a hand seal, and a beam of bloodlight shot out from his head. The bloodlight surged upward, forming a murderous aura that spread out. With a loud roar, it transformed into a Tinjiang-long sword light, shooting directly at Wang Lin. This was Yu Fei's life-bound treasure. Forced to the limit, he had no choice but to unleash it without hesitation. After throwing out his life-bound treasure, Yu Fei, at the mid-glimpse of Nirvana stage, quickly formed another hand seal. Immediately, large swaths of blood mist appeared in front of him. The mist swirled like storm clouds, and 100-zhang-long demonic python materialized, its massive head reaching out with a blood-red mouth wide open, trying to devour Wang Lin. After completing this, Yu Fei felt uneasy. He quickly patted his storage pouch, and numerous treasures flew out, flashing with various magical lights. He spat a mouthful of essence blood onto each one, roaring "Kill." The treasures in front of him immediately surged forward, heading straight for Wang Lin. Yu Fei's face was slightly pale, but without hesitation, he retreated. Wang Lin's expression remained indifferent. As the red sword formed from Yu Fei's life-bound treasure came at him, Wang Lin's body suddenly radiated a powerful spiritual energy. His physical form rapidly expanded, and within an instant, he became a giant over 10 zhang tall. The enormous body exuded an ancient, powerful aura. With a single step, Wang Lin didn't dodge. The red sword struck his body with a loud bang, but Wang Lin didn't flinch. Instead, the red sword shattered into pieces. If Wang Lin had not merged his avatars with his true body, he would never have dared to face a mid-glimpse of Nirvana stage life-bound treasure head-on. However, now that he had merged his avatars, he was able to withstand it, especially with the rich primordial energy circulating within him, dissipating the treasure's energy. Following the red sword, the massive demonic python materialized. It roared and rushed toward Wang Lin, but Wang Lin remained cold as ice. With a single step forward, he reached out with his right hand and grabbed the giant python's head. With a crushing squeeze, a loud bang echoed, and the python was shattered into pieces. As Wang Lin was about to throw it aside, he raised an eyebrow in surprise. The python actually had a soul. Without hesitation, he summoned the yellow springs, and with a sweep of his hand, the surrounding resentment filled the air. He tossed the demonic python into the yellow springs and waved his hands. All the treasures that had been rushing toward him immediately shattered with a series of loud bangs. Yu Fei's life-bound treasure had been destroyed. Spitting another mouthful of blood, Yu Fei's face turned even paler. Gritting his teeth, he looked determined, and despite the agonizing pain, he tore off his left arm. Blood gushed forth as he stripped the flesh from his bone, muttering several complex incantations. In an instant, his severed arm exploded, forming an elliptical vortex door. Without hesitation, Yu Fei stepped into the portal. "Sumu, in the slaughter domain, there are 2 Soul Slayer attendants besides myself. Your body may be strong, but under the Soul Attendant's divine ability, you will surely perish." Yu Fei's eyes burned with hatred as he entered the vortex. Seeing Yu Fei about to escape, Wang Lin's eyes flashed with cold killing intent. His usual approach was to let others be if they left him in peace. But if they attacked him, he would not show mercy. At that moment, Yu Fei's body had already stepped into the vortex. The vortex spun rapidly, shrinking with each turn, and was about to vanish into the starry sky. A cold light flashed in Wang Lin's eyes. Outside his body, the sound of a cauldron ringing echoed, as a massive cauldron, dozens of meters in size, manifested in front of him. It was the ancient god cauldron. Wang Lin's clone had used it before, requiring the greedy wolf seal from years ago. However, now that his clone and true body had merged, the power of this manifestation was even deeper. Spatial shift. In an instant, a powerful echo reverberated within the ancient god cauldron. The rapidly contracting vortex seemed to be gripped by an invisible hand, forcibly shifted to stand in front of Wang Lin. His body, too, surged forward under the influence of this strange power. At the moment they crossed paths, Wang Lin's right hand formed a sword with 2 fingers, containing the Slaughter Luo seal, the Heaven and Earth Thunder Might, and the Yin-Yang Dual Fish Dao Intent. At the same time, the ancient god's formidable physical strength and his world-shattering divine ability gathered into this single strike. Suddenly, the vortex was pierced, and his finger shot deep inside, striking powerfully. Within the Alliance Star Domain, in the Cultivation Alliance's 2 palaces, the 4 Honored Ones, and the Slaughter Domain. At a particular location that resembled a gigantic sword thrusting through the void, an elliptical vortex suddenly appeared in the air. A strange pulling force emanated from it, immediately catching the attention of cultivators in the Slaughter Domain. From within the vortex, Yu Fei's body stepped out. His face was pale, with blood still dripping from his left arm. As he appeared, the vortex behind him rapidly shrank. Seeing himself back in the familiar Slaughter Domain, Yu Fei let out a sigh of relief, but he still felt immense fear. His gaze turned to the towering structure ahead, ready to speak. However, just as he was about to speak, an overwhelming aura suddenly burst out from that tower, accompanied by a furious roar. "Yu Fei, get out of there." At the same time, a red light shot out from the tower, instantly approaching Yu Fei. Yet, it was a moment too late. At the sound of the roar, Yu Fei didn't hesitate and immediately tried to break through. But just at that moment, from the shrinking vortex behind him, a sharp aura blasted out, tearing through the space. In an instant, the vortex was penetrated. 2 fingers suddenly reached out from within the vortex, carrying an overwhelming murderous intent, and pressed directly onto Yu Fei's back. "It's Sumu." Yu Fei spat out a mouthful of blood. His body was struck violently, thrown away with immense force. As he was thrown, loud cracks echoed from within his body, and large sprays of blood mist shot out from his pores. Almost instantly, his entire body exploded with a resounding bang. Even his essence spirit couldn't escape the destruction. In that moment of collapse, both his physical and spiritual forms were annihilated. Even his storage pouch shattered, and its contents scattered. Among them was a tree branch that immediately shrank back, being grabbed by the 2 fingers extending from the vortex. This scene caused an uproar within the Slaughter Domain. The red light that had shot out from the tower headed straight for the fingers extending from the vortex. However, just as the fingers pointed, they quickly retracted, and the vortex vanished. The red light let out a furious roar and shot out even faster, a withered right hand emerging from within, reaching for the dissipating vortex. With a cracking sound, as the ripples distorted, the withered hand grasped a half-length tree branch. "Sumu." The red light blinked, transforming into an elderly figure. With a head of fiery red hair, this figure roared in fury. For countless millennia, in the Slaughter Domain, nothing had ever been like today. To watch one of their own be directly killed in front of their eyes was akin to having an enemy invade their very territory. Furious roars echoed from various structures, and cultivators brimming with murderous intent quickly appeared, their eyes fixed on the spot where Yu Fei had perished. For a long time, they remained silent. This silence was suffocating, filled with an unimaginable killing intent, as if waiting to explode. The elderly red-haired man took a deep breath, a cold glint appearing in his eyes. After a while, he flicked his sleeves, and his figure returned to the tower. After some time, a chilling voice rang out from within. "Chase after him, Sumu." Meanwhile, Wang Lin withdrew his fingers. His body slowly shrank, and in an instant, he returned to his human form. His expression was cold. Since he had already killed, he would ensure it was thorough. Letting his enemy go wouldn't stop the cycle of killing, so he chose to strike decisively. After a brief moment of contemplation, Wang Lin glanced at the half-branch in his hand and placed it in his storage pouch. He had risked taking it when he killed Yu Fei, but it held great value. "With this, I can ensure my safety in the Western Alliance region." Wang Lin's body flickered and vanished from the spot. He reappeared on Reggie's back. The big-headed child was now uneasy, but upon seeing Wang Lin return, he let out a sigh of relief, his expression turning respectful. The battle with Yu Fei's clone had left some wounds. Tower Mountain, though injured slightly, was now sitting cross-legged nearby, focusing on healing. Wang Lin sat on Reggie's back, speaking calmly, "Reggie, find a secluded savage star. I need to enter seclusion." Reggie's voice rumbled through the air, and with a burst of speed, he quickly disappeared into the distance. The leader of the group was one of the Earth Fiends among the 108 Immortals. Upon seeing Reggie's massive form, he immediately froze, his eyes narrowing in caution. Even the Luotian cultivators behind him tensed up, all of them poised as if facing a great threat, their sword lights howling as they channeled their divine abilities. At that moment, the leader's eyes suddenly sharpened. He noticed Wang Lin and the big-headed boy, seated in a lotus position on Reggie's back. He sucked in a sharp breath and immediately took a few steps back, cupping his fists in respect and saying, "Greetings, Thunder Immortal." Xun'er's name was well known in Luotian, and the leader had even witnessed Wang Lin's feat when he sealed his immortality. He held Wang Lin in great reverence, and his current respect was sincere. Wang Lin gave a slight nod without speaking. Reggie, moving with the speed of thunder, zipped past the cultivators, his presence like a roaring storm. It wasn't until Wang Lin had moved far away that the Earth Fiend cultivator retracted his gaze, a trace of envy in his eyes. He murmured to himself, "No wonder he's the true Thunder Immortal of Luotian. Such a mount." It wasn't just him. The other cultivators around also felt the same. They all admired Reggie, their hearts filled with awe. As Reggie advanced, the number of Luotian cultivators they encountered increased, clearly indicating that the Luotian star domain had completely occupied this area. Each of the cultivators who saw Wang Lin greeted him with respect, especially when their gazes fell upon Reggie. Shock and envy filled their eyes. The rumors surrounding Xun'er had spread far and wide among the Luotian cultivators. In recent days, many rumors about Xun'er had surfaced. Most of them said Xun'er was too afraid to fight or had betrayed them to join the alliance. Su Ting, of course, was happy to hear these rumors, secretly fueling them, causing them to grow wilder. The older generation of Luotian cultivators didn't stop the rumors from spreading. Coupled with Wang Lin's prior disappearance, the rumors only became more exaggerated. Some even claimed Xun'er was involved with the alliance, and these rumors became more intense with each passing day. As Reggie continued on, more and more Luotian cultivators noticed him. Their gazes toward Wang Lin were a mixture of respect, curiosity, and some even seemed to be waiting for an entertaining spectacle. A day later, Reggie stopped at the edge of a savage star. This star was barren and lacked spiritual energy. Even the Luotian cultivators who occupied the star didn't pay much attention to it, leaving only a few to guard it. Wang Lin took a careful look at the savage star. Its location was relatively remote. Though it was within the Luotian cultivators' territory, it posed no issue for Wang Lin to choose it as a place to go into seclusion. After a brief moment of contemplation, Wang Lin swiftly descended from Reggie and walked toward the savage star. The big-headed boy and Pagoda Mountain followed closely behind. As for Reggie, he shrank in size to become a giant man of about 3 meters tall, stepping forward to follow. As they neared the star, Wang Lin could hear the roars of beasts. Though the star was wild, it was home to numerous savage beasts, most of which had no intelligence and lived purely by instinct. There were giant snakes several meters long and winged tigers, among others. These creatures were quite common. As Wang Lin's feet touched the ground, the Luotian cultivators stationed on the star immediately woke from their meditations. They hesitated for a moment before flying toward him, their swords glowing. Wang Lin chose a mountain on the star, one that was peculiar in shape. The mountain shot straight up like a finger piercing the sky, as if trying to break through the heavens themselves. Upon landing on this strange mountain peak, without needing any command from Wang Lin, Pagoda Mountain immediately threw a punch that struck the peak. At once, a cave residence was formed atop the mountain by a spell. At that moment, several sword lights cut through the sky. The cultivators guarding this place quickly arrived. Within 100 feet, the 5 or 6 of them clasped their fists in respect and said, "Greetings, Thunder Immortal." Wang Lin gave a slight nod and spoke in a calm voice. "I will cultivate my immortal arts here. Do not disturb me." The cultivators quickly nodded and, cupping their fists, withdrew respectfully. Once they had left, Wang Lin made a hand seal, breaking the mental restrictions that had been placed in his hands, and with each imprint, barriers began to form around the mountain. Everywhere around him, the landscape began to show traces of the seal. After setting up the barriers, Pagoda Mountain and the big-headed boy sat cross-legged at a distance, selflessly guarding the area. As for Reggie, he also found a place to sit cross-legged. Lately, he had sensed some strange changes in his innate divine abilities and spent his time contemplating in silence. Wang Lin closed his eyes. The surroundings grew quiet, save for the occasional roar from afar. As he continued to lay down his seals, the nearby beasts instinctively moved farther away. Though these creatures lacked intelligence, they sensed that this place was dangerous. In this relatively peaceful atmosphere, Wang Lin's mind cleared. The two immortal arts inherited from immortal monarch Qi Shui surfaced in his mind, rain calling and scatter beans to form soldiers. The rain calling technique. When Wang Lin had previously attempted to summon wind, he inadvertently condensed a few raindrops, sensing the faint essence of rain calling. However, every subsequent attempt failed to replicate this success. With the inheritance from Qin Shui, he now understood the underlying reason. Wind summoning and rain calling were deeply intertwined, with the two techniques capable of transforming into one another and even combining. Lost in thought, Wang Lin stretched out his arms and quietly delved into the rain calling technique. To call the rain, one must gather the primordial energy between heaven and earth, channeling it for oneself. With the fluctuation of the technique, the energy condenses into raindrops, each containing rich primordial vitality. It could be said that this was part of the natural order. As Wang Lin meditated, the sky above him gradually darkened, and clouds slowly gathered, spreading over a vast area. After a while, raindrops began to fall from the heavens, splashing down onto the earth. Perhaps it had been a long time since it had rained in this place, as the raindrops kicked up layers of dust from the ground. From Wang Lin's vantage point, the earth seemed alive with a galloping herd of horses, the dust rising, and, as the rain fell, it returned to the earth. The sight was quite magnificent. As he gazed at the rain, Wang Lin was fully immersed in the moment. But suddenly, the raindrops seemed to halt mid-air as two figures approached, stepping through the void. Before the rain could touch them, it vanished silently, turning into thick clouds and mist. As the two figures walked forward, not a single drop of rain touched them. "Sumu, do you know what you've done wrong?" A low voice came from one of them. This figure was an elderly man whom Wang Lin had seen before in the Thunder Immortal Palace. He remembered that this man was likely the punishment elder of the Thunder Immortal Palace. Beside him stood Yin Lazy, his expression dark, staring at Wang Lin with cold eyes. The rain around him transformed into clouds and mist, and within them, flames seemed to burn, exuding an unimaginable pressure. It felt as if with a mere thought, he could make the very clouds and mist collapse the world. "What wrong?" Wang Lin asked calmly, looking at the elderly man. "I ask you," the old man shouted, "where were you during the Battle of Luotian? What did you do? As a true Thunder Immortal, you went missing before the battle and still refused to admit your mistake." Yin Lazy remained silent, but his cold gaze deepened. For these past few days, his divine sense had spread everywhere, but he hadn't found Wang Lin. As for the distant areas, he had refrained from probing. Wang Lin's expression remained unchanged as he calmly said, "I went to kill Yu Fei, the slaughter attendant from the Cultivation Alliance's slaughter domain." The old man froze, while Yin Lazy's eyes flashed with a glint of light. Wang Lin remained composed, not even glancing at the old man, but instead focusing his gaze on Yin Lazy. Yin Lazy stared at Wang Lin, his icy demeanor slowly easing. He said, "The Cultivation Alliance does have a slaughter domain and the Soulslayer twin attendants. But how can you prove that Yu Fei, the slaughter attendant, died by your hand?" As soon as Yin Lazy spoke, the elderly man fell silent. Wang Lin's face remained expressionless as he tapped his storage pouch. In an instant, half of the World Thunder Tree branch appeared in his hand, arcs of electricity dancing along its surface. He hurled it forward, sending it toward Yin Lazy. With the roar of thunder, the branch neared Yin Lazy and was caught by his right hand. Yin Lazy carefully examined it, immediately recognizing the item. It was one of the most prized treasures from the slaughter domain, and with his cultivation, he could immediately sense two distinct forces clashing within it. One, undoubtedly, was Wang Lin's. The other, however, radiated an overwhelming murderous aura. Indeed, this is the slaughter domain's vice lord's slaughter domain sword Qi. Yin Lazy said, his eyes filled with admiration as he looked at Wang Lin. He glanced at the branch in his hand and, with a flick of his wrist, tossed it back to Wang Lin. Laughing, he said, "Well, Su Mu, you may rest easy here. 1 month from now, when the reinforcements from Luotian arrive, we will march straight into the northern part of the alliance. Wang Lin bowed respectfully, cupping his fist in acknowledgement. Yin Lazy chuckled loudly, casting a meaningful glance at the distant Datu boy before stepping through the void, leaving. The elderly man immediately followed behind him. The two figures soon disappeared into the distance. Wang Lin maintained a calm exterior, but inside, he sighed with relief. Before entering the Luotian domain in the western part of the alliance, he had already devised a plan. This was why, during his confrontation with Yu Fei, he had taken the risk of retrieving the World Thunder Tree branch to gain their trust. In the starry sky, Yin Lazy's face no longer showed the satisfaction he had earlier. His expression was now cold and unreadable. The elderly man beside him, sensing something, immediately spoke up. "Hall Master, I believe Su Mu is clearly lying. Moreover, that Datu boy is one of the celestial guardians, yet he seems to be under Su Mu's control. In my opinion." Yin Lazy turned around and shot a cold glance at the old man. Under that gaze, the old man trembled, and in a shock to his spirit, he swallowed the second half of his sentence. Retracting his gaze, Yin Lazy walked step by step into the void. This Su Mu is no ordinary person. There are 4 powers converging at the center of his brow. With my cultivation level, I can only see one of them. Clearly, the one I can perceive is the weakest. Yin Lazy mused as he strode through the starry sky. The power he could discern extinguished the thoughts he had been harboring. He sighed inwardly, recognizing the familiar strength of Vermilion Birdmark. Only individuals at his cultivation level could detect the mark on the center of his brow. Su Mu didn't have such anomalies before returning to the Alliance. He vanished for some time before reappearing with this strange Vermilion Birdmark. That person had once helped me, so I won't dwell on it. Yin Lazy shook his head and, with a single step, disappeared with the old man beside him. News of Su Mu's return spread rapidly. After all, his name was well known in Luotian. Soon, almost all Luotian cultivators learned that Su Mu was back. The one most troubled by this was Su Ting. After hearing the news, he fell silent for a moment before charging out with his team of cultivators, moving forward to scout and seeking to vent his unprovoked anger on the cultivation star. Meanwhile, Wang Lin, who was on the Savage Star, found that as the rainy season set in, continuous rain enveloped a large portion of the planet. The mist made it appear as if the heavens and earth had been fragmented by the downpour, warping sight itself, making it difficult to penetrate the cascade of rain. On the ground, the dust had dissipated, merging with the rain to form channels washed clean, as the falling water carried mud and sand particles along with its current. On numerous plants, leaves and branches made a pattering sound as raindrops struck, with water flowing down along the edges, gathering at the bottom like lines, gracefully falling like a galaxy. Various ferocious beasts sought out shelter to escape the deluge, while only certain water-loving small creatures danced in the rain during this persistent rainy season. Amongst the mist, Wang Lin's mountain peak stood tall. At its summit, the two gazed blankly at the endless rain, falling silent. The mountain's barriers did not actively stop the rain from falling, allowing the summit to also be shrouded in rain. Looking at the downpour, Datu was reminded of his childhood when he too would stare blankly at the rain during the season. He recalled that it was a rainy night when he was expelled from his family, a time when, in confusion, he was pushed out the door and fell into the muddy water. At that moment, he still bore a foolish smile on his face, though it was tinged with sadness. Lying in the mud, soaked from the rain, he looked up at the occasionally flickering lightning and the rumbling thunder, feeling a deep ache in his heart. He knew he looked pitiful, and to avoid being despised by others, he always wore a smile in the face of everything. Even when his mother teased him harshly, he forced a smile. Even when his siblings bullied him, he still smiled. Yet despite this, the outcome never changed. In that rainy night, his smile gradually faded into confusion as he stumbled further away into the night. His small frame seemed as if it could collapse under the booming thunder at any moment. Datu touched his chest, glancing at Pagoda Mountain and Reggie in the distance, feeling a stir of warmth in his heart for reasons he could not comprehend. He could never forget several days ago when, in utter despair, preparing to self-destruct, a pair of hands pulled him from the brink of death, and a silhouette occupied his vision. Reggie, too, watched the rain, contemplating his own innate divine abilities, lost in memories in this relatively quiet environment. He subconsciously recalled moments from his past. He had been forced away from the giant demon star, filled with hatred, escaping with his kin. They drifted aimlessly through the starry sky. At that time, he was confused, with a heart full of bloodlust, yet powerless to turn the tides. The only option was to travel far away, compelled to leave. Had he been even a moment late, he would have forever missed the chance to step out of the giant demon star. In this haze, he led his kin to the Vermilion Bird Star. At that time, the leader of the Vermilion Bird Star was a figure named Yu. Under Yu's guidance, many cultivators gathered, engaging in a fierce battle with the original inhabitants of the planet, the Immortal Remnant clan, who were skilled in using ancient runes. What was once a spirit-rich planet became half-abandoned in that conflict. And beside Yu was someone Reggie particularly disliked. He remembered that person was called Xun'er. This man was incredibly arrogant, and his actions bordered on those of a demonic path. In contrast, Reggie held a much higher regard for Yu. When the giant demon clan arrived, they were received with great honor by Yu. Without hesitation, Yu allocated a vast territory, forming a nation of its own, and gifted it to Reggie. This land wasn't near the Immortal Remnant clan, but instead located far away in a very safe area. Reggie had nothing to repay him with, only the battle axe in his hand. So, he charged alone into the domain of the Immortal Remnant clan, battling multiple enemies and taking heads in return for Yu's kindness. Looking back on the past, Reggie was filled with emotion. He wasn't as simple-minded as he appeared. On the contrary, he was deeply calculating. With tens of thousands of years of experience, he had seen too much. It was just that his long imprisonment by the corpse insect had dulled his mind. Precisely because of his depth and scheming nature, Reggie had agreed without hesitation to become Wang Lin's mount. Through countless moments of secret observation, he had come to a realization. By following Wang Lin, he might one day return to Demon Star and exact his revenge. Especially during the previous battle, when Wang Lin let out the roar of the ancient god, Reggie was shaken to his core. In that instant, all his calculations shattered, leaving only a will deep in his soul, inherited from his ancestors, one that surrendered to the will of the one who roared. It was in that very moment that his resolve to follow Wang Lin truly solidified. Just being a mount won't earn me recognition. Everything must rely on the divine abilities of my giant demon clan. With that thought, Reggie closed his eyes and once more immersed himself in his innate divine ability. Wang Lin sat cross-legged as rain fell from the sky, soaking his body. A chill seeped into him through the raindrops. Slowly, he inhaled and exhaled, his divine sense spreading outward, using the mountain beneath him as its center, radiating in all directions. His divine sense fragmented into countless strands, attempting to merge with the falling rain. Yet each time it touched the rain, the droplets would fall to the earth and dissipate, and his divine sense would vanish along with them. Again and again it happened. The rain of this world seemed to offer no resistance to his divine sense. But it was precisely this lack of resistance, under the force of heaven and earth, that caused the rain to vanish upon touching the ground. And that, Wang Lin could not change. As he continued to merge with the rain, Wang Lin gradually lost himself in the process. Then suddenly, he seemed to hear a realization from long, long ago. This rain is born from the heavens and dies on the earth. The process in between is life itself. I don't look at the rain for the sky, or for the earth, or even for the rain, but to see the life of the rain. This is life and death. Wang Lin's body trembled. His eyes snapped open as he stared at the falling rain before him, and he murmured, "I have understood life and death. What remains is the origin of the rain itself."